Welcome to your Joyful Life Podcast, Episode 7. In this episode, we talk about why your stories feel so real and how you can break the spell. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
This is Episode 7.
Your Joyful Life Podcast.
Yes.
That's Evan.
That's Mike.
Hey, we're here.
We don't usually introduce ourselves.
We don't.
If people are looking to have a closer relationship to us through our content, they should probably know our names. And now they do.
Now they do. That was so simple.
Easy enough.
Yeah. All right.
So, today we're diving back into our conversation about stories and the stories we tell ourselves. And at the end of our last episode, we started talking about how to sort of practice noticing that you were in a story. And that's what we're going to focus on today. But before we do that, I thought we'd take a step back and just kind of re-explain or re-explore what we mean by stories, because I've had some conversations with people where, you get into a drama with someone and you say, that's the story you're telling yourself. Some people don't like to hear that. Because it sounds like what you're saying is
newsflash.
You're just making that up.
It may sound dismissive. Oh, by the way, that's just your story.
Right. And no amount of acknowledging myself being in my own story seemed to be enough to...
Now, at that point, you're you're backpedaling pretty heavily there.
Yeah. So I thought where we would start in the program that you originally created, the Joyful Life Project,
yep.
and the one that we built into an online course with a link in the show notes there. One of the things that we talk about, one of the experiments in the Joyful Life Project is acknowledgement. Mm-hmm. And within acknowledgement, we talk about the distinction between data and drama.
Right.
You could think of it as fact versus fiction or something like that. So I thought we could start, because what we're saying is the story is the drama, the data is the data. So when we talk about stories, we're talking about the drama in this dichotomy of data versus drama. So let's just start. Why don't you just talk to us about data versus drama, maybe with some examples. And if you don't have any, I will prompt you for some, because I find that helpful.
Yeah. The data and the drama. Another way that we've talked about it is sort of with using the language of what's so. And what's so is pretty encompassing, because what's so includes the story, it includes the data, it includes the drama, it includes what's so is just what's occurring in any given moment. The way we're looking at data and drama, I think a good distinction to make is drama is... It's curious, as a sidebar, I was talking to my wife about this yesterday, and the drama is what comes out of our personal thinking. Mm. So I think a way to distinguish data from drama is that the drama is a creation of our personal mind, of our personal thinking. We could say that drama arises in the ego.
Okay.
Might be an interesting way of placing that, right? So, the example, it's raining outside. Well, that's a what's so. Having drama about it raining outside is also a what's so. It's just what's occurring in our own being in that moment. But the distinction as we're using it, it's raining outside. That's data. What we make that mean is always the drama, and
right.
What we make something mean, I think, is always coming from our personal thinking. It's coming from somewhere other than, we might say, known or embodied wisdom. It's coming from somewhere other than accepting what's happening right now.
Right. So when we say, just to give some more examples, so the data is, yes, it is raining, period. I got fired from my job, period. My partner cheated on me, period. I got into a car accident, period. That's the data. That's the thing that happened.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, but it's almost like anything you can put a period behind.
Right.
It's kind of the data. Like so a statement plus a period is kind of data, and use what so to define putting a period behind something.
Right. I think I was getting a little confused before because you said sort of the story is also part of
The
the
what's
what's so, and we're
yeah.
trying to make a distinction.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be
That might be another podcast episode. That might be a
Right.
guest podcast episode.
right. We'll see if Werner Erhardt's around.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
what we're saying is, and the thing that helped me when you first introduced this, and I was thinking about this, is most of the time when something happens, we don't make that distinction between the data and the drama, and then we get caught up in
Right.
the story. So if it's raining, period, there's nothing to get caught up in. That's just an observation about the world.
Yeah.
But if I say to myself, oh no, we had plans to be outside today, now it's raining, so the day is ruined, I'm not making a distinction in my mind. I'm just spinning drama into the data, and now my reality is that my day is ruined.
Yeah. Yeah. It's when you add the should. Right, it's raining, but it should be something else.
Right. Yes.
Because I want to be doing this. Right. So I think that's probably why at the beginning I kind of alluded to it being egoic. It's coming from our personal thinking. It's this desire for it to be different than it is.
Right. Right. So yes, I would agree with that. So the reason we all suffer. You're welcome. The reason we suffer, and this is a very Buddhist thing, is like Buddhists say we suffer because of a sense of craving for, like there's a sense of dissatisfactoriness in the world. And what that means is we want things to be different than they are.
Yeah.
Right. If you can accept the way things are, why would you be unhappy? So as we start getting into our conversation about stories, what we're talking about is stories sort of equal the drama that we're talking about here and the problems that those can create, or the stories aren't by default negative. You can tell a positive story, right? Oh, this happened, and now there's an opportunity for this. That's also a story. So stories are not negative.
Exactly.
But they are, like you said, sort of creations of the mind and the ego about what we're calling the data.
Yeah. And I think Julie will appreciate what you just said, that, stories about happiness, stories that we tell ourselves about moments that are good, those are also stories. Yes, they are. And we don't have to do anything about them because they feel good.
Right. And
there's nothing problematic in that.
Yeah. We've talked about, if you're on vacation or something, you're on a beach, everything's beautiful, you're drinking your Mai Tai or whatever it is, you're with the person you want to be with, everything is perfect. You don't stop and think what is going on.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. There's no thought. You're just in the moment. And I think that's why, so stories can be positive, but yes, when we are having a quote positive experience, our tendency is to tell fewer stories because we're just enjoying the moment.
Yeah. And there's probably something about the positive story being coming from a place of resonance or alignment or something that speaks to connection with the moment. So we're maybe a little bit closer to experiencing what's there to be experienced in real time.
Right. Yes.
Right. Like more directly is maybe a way of saying that. So when we're talking about stories, we're talking about the thinking that doesn't serve us, I think is maybe a way to articulate that, right?
Yeah, that's where I wanted to. I didn't have those words, but yeah, that's...
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes. Thank you. So, so that's sort of the intro and the segue that I wanted to get to. So for everyone listening, so stories are, how did you put it?
Well, it's personal thinking it's the thinking that doesn't serve us.
Excellent. Right. So now we're going back. So the question we want to talk about today is, how can we more readily identify when we are caught up in our stories
that don't serve
us?
Yeah.
And what I think we're saying there is, you were telling me before about an interaction you had with
right, yes.
I don't know if I would call them colleague, but someone you know, and you, from your side, you were trying to have a normal, rational conversation. And from their side, they were basically ready to come to blows over maybe a perceived slight or something. It doesn't matter what the story is. But each of you had a story about what had happened that led to this moment, about the kind of outcome you wanted, what it meant that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I can't really speak for the other person, but I would say if you're trying, if side A of the coin is have a conversation about something and B is let's fight about it, I'm going to make the bold assumption that side A is probably coming from a healthier, more open, more aligned place. Bold statement, I know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I appreciate the vote of confidence there, yes.
so using that example, if the other person who was obviously sort of amped up and feeling defensive and attacked and whatever else was going on, they were much more caught up in a story than you were. And so the question we're exploring is, had that person sort of had exposure to this kind of idea and agreed with the premise that that story wasn't serving him,
Right.
how could he in the moment have noticed that and stepped out of it?
Yeah, realized it and de-escalated the story or yeah. Yeah, I mean, the short answer is how you got to pay attention to how it feels.
Okay.
The nutshell version is you have to make how you feel an absolute priority. You have to really give a shit about how you feel. And I think that gets misinterpreted often. I don't have a better way of articulating that yet, and that's borrowed from, one of my mentors who you're doing some work with now, Dominic Scafidi. You really have to make how you feel a priority. And it's not, when I say that or when we say that, it's not about selfishness. It's about making nothing more important than that you feel good. And it's not a Pollyanna syndrome. It's not head in the sand. It's practicing the art of noticing how feedback feels in a given moment. So, I like that you framed me in a positive light in this interaction. I do appreciate that, but I'll own part of it as well, because I started off very I went in with the intention, it was kind of spontaneous. I had thought about it the night before that I wanted to address this, but it happened spontaneously. I'm like, okay, I want to be reasonable about this. I want to have a conciliatory, is that the right word? Conciliatory?
Conciliatory.
Conciliatory? Three
Yeah.
syllables? 5 syllables. Okay. So I went in with the mindset to have a reasonable conversation. And I was in that mindset. I was in the story of wanting to have a reasonable conversation for, the first little bit of it. And then when I was confronted with, my story, which is defensiveness and aggression from the other person, I hate to admit that I started to match that. And I could feel that happening. I'm like, okay, listen. And at that point, what I noticed was, this doesn't feel good. I don't really want to do this. I don't want to do it this way. So my out was, or my effort to respect how I wanted to feel was, okay, listen, I just wanted to have a reasonable conversation with you. If you're not interested, and that may have been a little inflammatory, if you're not interested in having a reasonable conversation, and this was, finger wagging and the whole bit, then this isn't a conversation I want to have. So
Right.
I tried to extricate myself from it. So I think how that pertains to what we're trying to get across here, or what we're trying to point out here or point to here, is that when you monitor your own sense of how you feel, then you can pretty quickly recognize whether the direction you're going serves or doesn't serve. So in this case, I started off in service to myself. I wanted to feel good about this. I wanted to create the possibility that we could interact in the future without conflict or stress. I started off on that path pretty well. It was met with not similar feelings. I got caught up. So they got defensive, I got defensive, and then I noticed that in myself. And, as I said, I don't mean to repeat myself, but as I felt, this is not how I want to feel, this is not how I want it to go, what I tried to do was to disengage. And I'm, ultimately, the measure of success of that disengagement will play out in the next few weeks. We'll see. But the point I'm trying to make is that you feel it. That short answer of, it's all about how you feel. So this idea that making nothing more important than how you feel, that you feel good, I think is the ultimate guidance, right? And it's not in a hedonistic way. I was talking to a coaching client about this yesterday, actually, and we sort of bounced around with, well, if it's all about just feeling good, where does it tip into hedonism? Where does it tip into disregard for others? And where we sort of landed was that when we honor ourselves, when we honor how we feel, we're really honoring our highest self. We're really being true to ourselves, because ultimately none of us want to feel bad. So there's something about when we ask the question, how can you tell that you're in a story? It's how does it feel? How does the moment, sorry, let me correct that. How can we tell when we're in a story that doesn't serve us? You feel it. It's kind of that simple. And when we make that a priority, I think what we're aligning ourselves with when we make that commitment to feel good, we're aligning ourselves with the highest expression of ourselves. And so then my client said this, I'm paraphrasing now, but she did such a wonderful job with it. It's like, well, so when I honor myself at the highest level, when I care deeply about how I feel, other people feel that.
Yes.
It impacts everyone. So what she was describing as she was mulling it over or making, in her own articulation, was that when we deeply care about how we feel, it ripples outward. So I think the short answer, we'll see where we go with this, but the short answer, how can you tell that you're stuck in a story? You feel it.
Okay.
I mean, as we've landed often, you feel it. And I think the first step to noticing the distinction, whether we call it data or drama or personal thinking, or I don't know, what's the opposite of personal thinking? I don't know. Was it wisdom? Listening to the voice of wisdom, maybe?
Oh, yes, I guess there would be
quiet voice.
Yeah. I think wisdom is.
It's probably the best articulation. Like when we start paying attention to that quiet voice more than we start paying attention to the voice that we hear often and often loudly, that's a good starting spot to recognize that. I don't know if this is going to be right or not, but it's sort of coming fresh. But the story has two voices being told in it. There's that voice of wisdom, that quiet voice, the voice of guidance, and then there's that loud voice of ego and want to be right or want to win.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Right.
Yeah.
And when we can orient ourselves towards the quiet voice, the one that speaks powerfully but quietly, when we can make that distinction, that's a good place from which to recognize that we're in a story that doesn't serve.
Got it.
That was a little long-winded. I apologize for that.
No, I think that's a good place to start. What came up for me while you were saying that was Michael Singer, who we both listen to.
Yeah.
This isn't talking about stories. He talks about it around sort of things that you resist and things that you don't like. But he talks about the lines on the road. So when you're driving, white line, yellow line, whatever, broken line, solid line, those don't impact you. Right. You never get to your destination, and then I never drive to your house and like, you will not believe what was going on with those white lines on the road today. They were right. It's not
those darn lines,
right? You don't care. It's like, or the trees going past you or clouds overhead. They don't make any impact because you don't have any resistance to them. It's just data that comes in and out, right? It's like the sound of a car going by, right? In one ear and out the other, literally.
Yeah.
And what I was thinking about was, as that relates, the other part of it was, but sometimes things happen that you can't deal with. And so if I'm driving white line, no problem. And then all of a sudden I've hit the fourth red light in a row. Now all of a sudden I'm telling myself a story about how traffic in the city keeps getting worse. The city can't control the traffic lights.
Where are my tax dollars going?
Where are my tax dollars going? Yeah, I'm going to be late. And now something that could be, if you hit every green, they would be like the white lines on the road. You wouldn't notice because you're just going. But all of a sudden you have resistance. You're fighting this thing that's happening. And now you're telling yourself a story about it because you can't handle it and you're getting worked up. Or maybe you're trying to tell yourself a story about why this is a good thing. And I'll actually finish my podcast before I get there or whatever. But I mean, now you're just making things up. Although everything is made up. So what came up was as sort of kind of training wheels into this concept. If you're not used to thinking of things as a story, what came up was
Right.
everything when you in your house, when you go outside and interact with the world, there are stories everywhere that are just agreements. I was having this conversation with my daughter about it, and I said, like, isn't it interesting how we can just draw a line on the road and then all cars go on one side go one way and all cars on the other side go the other way? I think I mentioned that last time.
Yeah, until you go to England.
Right. And she said, well, that's a law.
Right.
I was like, yeah. And a law is just a story that we are all agreeing to tell each other so that things can happen. So we're not smashing into each other all the time, right? The fact that a piece of paper, I can go to a store and give someone a piece of paper
That's right.
and I get something back is a story we're all telling ourselves.
Something we agreed on, right?
Yeah, it's just an agreement. And so there are lots of stories as we move through our day that we don't think about as a story, right? You touch raw chicken and then you wash your hands, right? In the moment, like there's a reason for it. If I ask you why you wash your hands after you touch raw chicken, you'll give me an explanation. In the moment, you're not telling yourself a story. You're just accepting this is how things work.
Right.
And what I found helpful was to start noticing more of those. So as you're out in your day, it doesn't mean the story's wrong. Lots of stories serve us, but just notice that we are doing things because we've all made that agreement, or we're all telling ourselves, or maybe you're telling, maybe your family tells a story about certain things. I remember, I think this was a Zig Ziglar story. You know Zig Ziglar?
Yeah.
He was like a sales training guy from the 40s or 50s or 60s. I don't know, something. He's an old dude. He's funny to listen to if you can find a recording. But I think this comes from him. He was telling a story about a woman in the audience at one of his seminars was talking about, I guess they were talking about sort of tradition and stories. And she said, whenever I make a roast, I cut the ends off both sides of the roast.
Right. Why?
And he's like, why? And she's like, that's how my mom did it. I don't know the exact thing. He's like, well, call your mom. Let's find out why. So she phoned her mom and said,
I bet you I know where this is going.
Yeah. Why'd you cut the ends off the roast? And she said, well, that's what my mom did.
Yeah.
Grandma was still alive. Like, call grandma. Why does grandma do it? Grandma, why do you always cut the ends off the roast? She's like, the pan was too small.
Awesome.
So it's 3 generations living this story that you cut the ends off the roasts. And there was no reason for the latter 2 generations to be doing this. They had a big enough pan.
Small.
And we all have, Ramit Sethi, who has I think I mentioned, he has a podcast called Money for Couples. He has a Netflix show. I can't remember what it's called, but he does like sort of financial counseling and advice for couples. Great podcast. And he calls these internal scripts.
Right.
So we're all raised with internal scripts about how we should be, how things should be. Credit cards are bad, or debt is good, or whatever through a financial lens. So before
it's habits of thought, right?
Yeah. It's just, we were taught a thing, or we learned a thing, or we experienced a thing. Maybe we had an experience. I noticed, I was watching my daughter. She had a couple sort of experiences at school, and she started talking about fairness. Like, this isn't fair.
Right.
And by maybe the 3rd one, what I started to see is like, oh, this is a young person starting to build a lens to see the world through. And now, like, if she's not careful, she's going to get sensitized to fairness as a concept. She's going to be on the lookout for things not being fair.
She's going to build a construct around what it means. Yeah.
So she's going to notice that more than people who haven't had the first couple of experiences. And if she's not careful about it, she's going to tell herself a very compelling story about how. Oh,
and then sorry to jump in, but then I think the trap there is, and then start looking for evidence to support the story.
Exactly.
So we end up in a belief about how things are or should be, and then we not justify it, but we search for validation.
We find evidence for it. Yeah. And somebody who's not looking at things through that lens will just have the moment. And what sort of helped unlock this for me was realizing, we all have those things, and it's really easy to see in other people, and it's really hard to see in ourselves. So
ain't that the truth?
So as we start talking about this, for people who may be listening or watching who haven't, if this concept is new, what I found helpful was to start noticing those little stories, like the lines on the road and and I mentioned last time, travel is great for this. If you go to another country, they have different customs and rules, and everyone start eating at the same time at a meal, or does whoever gets the food first start going,
Who
right?
pours for whom?
Yeah, yeah,
Whatever.
exactly.
Yeah.
So finding those contrasts really helps you notice your own story. And once you start doing that, I think where I was going to that was before we get into, okay, how do I feel the change? I think the deep acceptance of the premise that we are all living in many overlapping stories is important. Otherwise, it's very conceptual. So I hope what my monologue here was my sort of prompt is like, can you accept that a lot of the things that we do and a lot of the things that you believe are constructs. I like that word, of things that you've been taught that society says you should do, that your religion says that you should do, that your culture, your town, whatever, or that you've just sort of developed over time. But these are not facts about the world. These are constructs, and if they're not serving you, they can be deconstructed.
Yeah. Sort of what comes up as I was listening is that really, if it's all stories, if we can agree that it's all stories, then I think that becomes problematic when we believe that our story, my story, is more valid than your story.
Yes.
So if we look out into the world now, it's very easy to see a lot of stories that look like those are the wrong stories.
Right.
And they may or may not be. And they are still stories.
Yeah.
And I think something that I've been, again, from conversations with my awesome wife, who holds me accountable for all of this really well. If my story is my story and her story is her story, can we both be okay that we have different stories? It's okay to have different stories. They don't have to compete with one another. They don't have to, one story doesn't have to be the right story. If I can accept that Evan is sitting here looking at me kind of quizzically telling a story about what I just said, that's cool. There's no problem with people having different stories. I think where the it's a bit broad here, but where the suffering begins is when we hold our story as true. My story is the right story, and now I have to protect my story because it's the right story. And really, all you're doing is protecting a belief.
So how
and that shrinks scope, right?
Right. The thing that came up is like, sure, maybe an interpersonal disagreement or something. Yes, two people can have different viewpoints and can go about their day. You can be at dinner with someone and like, politics this, politics that. Okay, we can still be friends. The reason you saw the quizzical look in my eyes is like sometimes those beliefs have very real impacts on other people.
Yes.
Out in the world, and there's lots of evidence of that happening today.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how to
compassion.
be not. Yeah, that's sort of where I was going. But
sorry,
maybe we
carry on. I need a short circuit.
maybe we can breadcrumb our way there without dropping the conclusion.
Or this can be a next podcast too, right?
Yeah. We'll take a pause.
All right. We're
back.
We're back.
Yeah. We were talking about, minor technical difficulties. Our new phone is overheating.
The implications of stories that people tell themselves on a larger scale.
Right. So if I tell myself a story that your fence is crossing into my property line, on the one hand, we can say, oh, we have different stories. If I tear that fence down because I'm upset about it, something else is going on there.
Yeah.
And I always like to make these things practical. Like I live in the world. I want to interact with the world. So I don't know how much we want to get into that, but that's what came up when you were talking about sort of the blanket idea that we can all just be okay with our own stories.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rational point to raise, right? Well, what if someone else's story, and if we look around the world, we can see how some people's stories have a greater impact than other people's stories. I don't know what the answer to that is, other than to say that somewhere in there, the answer feels like it's compassion. Somewhere in there, it feels like where a person is telling their story from matters. Now, not as an outcome, but if we can be compassionate to someone who's telling a story that doesn't serve the world, maybe acknowledge that their elevator of consciousness is maybe not where we would like it to be.
Right.
I think that can soften the way that we relate to that situation a little bit.
Okay.
I'm not excusing it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I got a pretty strong stances about the fact that we're still killing each other, regardless of who's doing it. That
Right.
to me is disgusting, and that's a different conversation. But I can't escape this sort of sense that compassion is the answer here.
Okay. I think that's, we went on a bit of a tangent. I
Yeah.
agree with you. That's sort of what I've come up with as well. The people that do the most harm to other people are not happy people and are suffering in their own way. And again, that's not to excuse it, but anyway, let's
Back to the plot.
yeah. So let's, so now that we've established, hopefully everybody's sort of caught up to not caught up, but accepting of the premise that we live in our stories.
Mm-hmm.
Those stories come from both ourselves and from outside. And now let's go back and revisit the question. So I'm caught up in my story. Let's use the red light thing again. So I hit my third red light and I'm going to be late. I've got an appointment. This always happens to me. You know, the universe is out to get me. The city doesn't know what they're doing. Why can't they automate the lights so that they're in sync so I can get where I'm going? It's the easiest thing. Now I'm going to be late. It's going to have this consequence. It all feels very real. I feel very justified in those stories. It doesn't feel like I'm making things up because I can I can give you a story. I can
we're
create
pretty
a story.
neat, aren't we?
Right, yeah.
Everything we think feels real. Wow, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. So I can create a much more compelling background story for all of those things about city budgets and corrupt politicians and, you know, whatever, it doesn't matter.
It's easier to do that rather than to acknowledge that you're caught up in your own bullshit.
Right. So it's
easier to point away, right?
Yeah. You know? So if I accept the fact that these are all stories, if I accept the fact that we didn't talk about this, but let's say I have the ability to notice and make that change, and doing that will produce a better outcome for myself. Let's say we agree on those three premises. So I'm sitting there in my car, I'm stewing. What do I do?
Well, on one hand, you stew until you stop.
Okay.
We've all done that.
Yeah.
We've been stewing, and then all of a sudden, we're no longer stewing. What happened? I don't know.
Right.
So, you know, you ride the experience. You try not to add fuel to the fire, or maybe you do add fuel to the fire, and eventually your thinking shifts, and you're no longer in that place. You know, how do you short circuit that or shortcut that a little bit? I think it comes back to, I don't like to use this language, but training yourself to care about how you feel. Like, I'm back to that again.
Okay. So,
you know,
excellent. So let's
practicing that.
So let's talk about that. So,
and I can give, so the way that I often offer this up to clients, like coaching clients, is, you know, for the next week or for the next however long you decide, just pay attention to how you feel. Notice when you feel good. Notice when you feel bad. And we're using good and bad very generically, right? And notice what's going on then.
okay.
Right?
So,
like, am I already running late when I'm running into the red lights? Am I already primed to see those red lights as the universe is against me? Have I already sort of preempted how I'm going to feel if I run up against a little blip in the matrix?
right. That's important. So the sort of stories leading up to the news story, or if I'm having an amazing day, I just had, you know, a fantastic morning with my kids. Everything's good. I've got plenty of time. Great song on the stereo,
Singing along.
and I hit 3 red lights. I'm not even going to notice. On the other hand, if that situation is sort of reversed and I got in a fight with my family and now I'm late and this other thing is going on, yeah, I'm certainly more primed for it. But let's stick in. So I'm at the light now.
At the light.
I'm stewing. So I have, one of my options is to just maybe just notice that feeling and just be accepting of, I am feeling frustrated right now. And I've talked before about just sort of leaning into that.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, how
absolutely.
frustrated can I feel about this? Let me just really notice.
Yeah, well, and commit to staying with it until it seems funny.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Wow,
And
this is ridiculous.
yeah. And that's what happens. So that's certainly one strategy where you're not doing anything. You are just directing your attention in a way that
Yeah.
notices the experience that you're having, which is probably going to feel worse before it gets better. But what you're not doing is holding it. You're not resisting anything.
Right.
Right. You're embracing it. You're not fighting
Yeah.
the reality around you. So that's one thing. Now, when you say notice how you feel, so okay, so I'm sitting there. Now I have to, with sort of my second mind, my first mind's caught up in the story. There's the whatever, the witness consciousness or whatever you want to call it. There's the second mind. It's like, you are losing your mind right now, or this doesn't feel good, or something. So that's the practice, is right. The practice is sort of listening to that second voice, or maybe not a voice, but just noticing that, like, this, I don't feel good right now.
Yeah, right? I think it begins, and we don't want to overcomplicate. It's so easy to overthink this, I think. Where I believe it begins is with an intention.
Okay.
I'm going to set an intention. I have set an intention in a general sense. So I can sum up my philosophy in, we all just have to get gooder.
Gooder. Okay.
Gooder. I don't have a better word for it yet.
Okay.
I strive at all times, unless I'm in an argument with someone like happened this morning, but I'm always trying to strive for gooder. And like I said, I don't have a better word for it. Gooder to me embodies the expressing myself from my purest form, as well as I can express myself. So that gooderness, that desire for gooderness, supports me in everything that I do.
Okay.
And I forget that sometimes.
Sure.
And I think that having that intention and having, we're pushing decades now with this. I think it lends itself so that I notice discontinuity quicker.
Discontinuity in your own experience?
In how I want to be, which is gooder, and how I may be
Right, okay.
behaving in a given moment where I lose sight of that. I think it starts with an intention. I think you got to want to feel good and live well, and whatever that means for you. I really think that, God, this language, declaring that either verbally or you write it down, or there's lots of talk about documents and things like that floating around. But I think really setting a clear intention on the commitment you want to make. My coach Martha Chan and I talked about this recently, in terms of stands. What's the stand? What do you want to stand for? I want to stand for gooder. What are my commitments that live under the umbrella of standing for gooder? What are my intentions? What are my agreements with myself? And I think that's a really, really good way of orienting oneself, so that with practice, you notice that noticing your feelings in any given moment is mostly all you have to do.
Okay.
Like, after you notice, what I notice, what I find is that when I notice, I have a choice. And that choice is either, I've noticed, and that breaks the current thinking. I notice. And then the choice is, do I carry on or not?
Yes, right.
So now I've noticed the negative feed, or whatever it is, the frickin' red lights, that whatever thinking comes with that has been interrupted. There's now, for a split second, there's a blank slate. What do I do in that time? Right? Do I reorient myself? Do I double down on, no, but I want to feel crappy?
Right.
Or do I allow something fresh to come? And I think most of the time, once we notice, what comes up is something new. Like, what I'm trying to articulate is that in the moment of noticing, it seems to me that in that space, once we've noticed, once we've interrupted it, we have to consciously go back to bad. It's almost like,
so the noticing breaks the spell, and then you have to.
It breaks a spell, and then if we want to recast the spell, we actually have to recast the spell.
Right.
Which is okay, now my personal mind is back in it. It almost feels like I have to consciously go back to the negative. And it doesn't always, sometimes it feels very natural to go back to the negative. But there's something about having an intention, having agreements with oneself about how one wants to live, and then just practicing it. And I don't mean as a doing. I don't mean like, oh, I got to practice this, but just to gently start to create an awareness of how you would prefer to be and feel in the world.
Right. I think that's really important. That I think it's easy, and I've had long periods of life where I felt so justified in my dissatisfaction with something.
Yeah. Oh,
that
yeah.
I didn't that feeling a different way felt like losing, like I was giving up. Like the path to happiness was not just being happy, it was doing something about this situation to get an outcome I
Right.
wanted. Like, I'm not going to be happy until I fight City Hall and get them
Until
to
I
change.
win. Until I win, right?
Yeah, and to change the computers controlling the lights so that I can have 3 greens in a row and get on with my day.
Well, and that's like any other articulation of when this, then that. When I have X amount of money in the bank, then I'll be happy. When, I think it was Jim Carrey who talked about, his greatest wish is for everyone to have all the fame and all the money in the world so they can realize that it doesn't bring happiness, right? Like, okay. Sorry, I interrupted your flow.
No. So we've had this. So we set this intention. I like, you call it a stand. I like the phrasing of a North Star.
Yeah.
I think it's like, what's the sort of North Star that I orient my life towards? So I've got that ahead of time. And then what came up for me from having that was, oh, what that means is that every opportunity, every experience that comes up is now an opportunity to practice, to continue orienting myself. It's not like,
exactly.
oh, this shouldn't have happened, or like my day would have been better if I hadn't had these red lights. No, these red lights are great because these are,
It's like, oh, duh, I did it again.
yeah. Well, these are like the Goombas in Mario that you hop on to get to the game would be boring if you didn't have the Goombas to jump on, right? These are the little guys. And then when a boss comes and you have something serious, like, a car accident or something else.
It's Singer talking about the rocks, right?
That's right. Yeah. So there's in the stream of a happy, easy life. Yeah. There are pebbles, there are boulders, and
So when we run into what doesn't feel good, it's something unresolved or whatever it is that you now have an opportunity or a possibility to not do something about. Is not the right language, but to notice and
just let it
Yeah,
move through you, turn it into one of those lines on the road.
yeah, there are opportunities to be gentle with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and do the noticing. So,
Yeah.
okay. So I've got this intention. I've got this attitude that the challenges are a positive thing because I can practice. Now I'm at the lights. I notice the feeling of myself stewing, feeling frustrated, railing, whatever it is.
Shaking your fist at the world.
And now here's the thing that you and I always sort of amusingly disagree. My instinct is to, and this is because I'm lower down on the elevator. I still think you have to do something about
That's
it.
a good story.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, my instinct is, and like the question, like, what do I do now? And your answer is always, you're not doing
There's nothing
anything
to do. Yeah.
So language wise, and I'm starting to notice it more. So sort of what you said about, okay, the noticing breaks the spell. Now I'm sitting at the red light. I notice that I've been caught up in my stories.
And you notice.
And
And the spell gets broken. And then you go back into your story, and then you notice.
Well, then,
And
okay, so then there's, before
you repeat and you repeat and you repeat. Yeah.
So before you go back into your story, like you
Yeah.
said, there's a moment where we can kind of decide if we want to do that or not.
Yeah.
And I think,
So can I,
Yeah.
may I? So
Okay.
I'm going to anyway. I have a really good articulation of this, and I've shared it before. It's years ago. My wife and I we'd argued about something the night before, went to bed. She was up early, gone. I woke up the next morning, and right away, that story from yesterday was there. It is almost as if I woke up already there.
Right.
It was already present when I woke up. Now I know that it wasn't, but this shit happened so fast. It seems like it was just waiting for me, which in a sense it was. So I could feel myself starting to get sucked into the story of yesterday. And then I noticed that that was happening. I realized that that was happening. And in that moment, that gap, oh shit, I don't have to go to this story.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't.
Right.
And it was that simple.
That's kind of it. Yeah.
And it doesn't always happen. But what it speaks to for me, and very powerfully, is for the possibility.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to, I'll say it this way, you're going to fuck this shit up. You're going to get it wrong. And there's no right or wrong. But it's the fact that if you can catch it once,
right.
you can do it again.
Yeah.
That means it's possible. And to me, that's, oh yeah, I could have gone down. I could feel myself like, whoa, come on, being pulled into this story. And I said, no, I don't have to do this.
Yeah.
Awesome. I have that much free will. I'll say it this way. I'll be like, I'll pat myself on the back for this, right? In that moment, I was so high on the elevator of consciousness, so in tune with how I wanted to feel that I refused to be drawn into the story of yesterday.
Great story.
Yeah, great story. And one that serves, because it ended up with me not getting sucked into the story of yesterday, to realize that, yeah, I don't have to do this.
Beautiful, yeah.
And I think noticing, I think this notion that we have to do something more other than notice and then make a different choice. Well, it's a good story.
No, I think that's brilliant. That story really illustrates. I mean, the story. Yeah,
It's a good story.
Yeah, it does illustrate the possibility, and I think what you said is absolutely right. The first time I saw that possibility, the first time I experienced it, like, oh, I could just do this all the time if I paid more attention. And that's a really cool thing to unlock.
And I think it's important that. I mean, I use this word a lot. We have to be gentle with ourselves. Man. Yeah. I'm learning this all the time. Like, I screw up constantly, and I'm learning to be gentle with myself when I do. And the more I screw up, the more I see that as an opportunity for, okay, we're going to tweak that. We're going to dial this in a little. We're going to double down on my intention. I'm going to gentleness goes a long way in facilitating one's ability to notice.
Yeah.
Right. If it's like, oh, I screwed up again, and you mean it. No, that's not good. Oh, I screwed up again. I'll do better now. We can have humor about all of this stuff, right? Like, life is here to, I don't know, man. It's supposed to be I think it's supposed to be a joyful experience. And that doesn't mean that bad things don't happen. But I don't know. I mean, given your druthers, how do you want life to look? That's an old word. Druthers, 1950s there.
Yeah, we don't hear,
I forgot your druthers.
We don't hear that much anymore. I think the one of the metaphors that I really like is like a video game. And I was using Goombas before, but like in a video game, you don't get angry when your character dies. You may get a little bit frustrated.
Well, I speak for yourself, man.
You may get a little bit frustrated, but you're not like railing against the injustice of the world.
Those damn Goombas.
Right. But you always get another redo, right? You can restart, and that's how the growth happens. If you beat the game on the first try, this isn't a fun game, right? You need the challenge, you need the experience, you need the redos, and I find having that sort of attitude when I remember is it helps bring that lightness to it. Like, oh, I'm just kind of playing here. I'm not going to get it right every time.
Yeah, I think that's a nice way of kind of not summarizing, but beginning to close off what we've been talking about. We've got, depending on how you view it, we have a finite amount of time, at least in this iteration. I think it's finite. And with every thought, we get a do-over.
Yeah. Ooh,
right. Our do-overs kind of happen at the speed of our thinking, if we let it, right? We can have the bad thought and get sucked into the bad thought. And now we're kind of in the struggle, either until we notice or it just peters out on its own. But with every thought comes a new opportunity to be gentle, to galvanize how we want to show up in the world, to not take our thinking too seriously, to realize that it's just stories.
What a powerful way to think about the next experience you can have in the world, that despite decades of stories and backgrounds, and this is how I am, and this is how things are, that thinking that, I can have a different thought in this moment that could change everything.
To me, that has been, I'll say it this way. One of the top three sort of realizations that looking in this direction is it's the greatest equalizer of people that exists. Every single person functions in the sense that we're talking about in the same way. We all think, all of our thinking looks real to us. When we start to see through that a little bit, that means that new possibility exists for everyone, anywhere, at all times. And to me, that's just, it transcends, oh, but the environment or this or that, or this person's upbringing or that. Okay, yes, on some level, you're right. And that doesn't preclude the possibility of that person suddenly having new thinking.
Wow.
Which changes the world or changes their world. Right. So to me, this looking in this direction is the beginning of I don't think there is a more powerful equalizer amongst people than to realize that every single person can wake up to new thinking at any given time.
It's a pretty good place to wrap up.
Mic drop. Hey, Mike, I'm a Mike.
I was going to say, we can't afford more of these. Don't be dropping them on the ground.
Yeah, that's right.
That's beautifully said. I think that's a great place to stop. Wrap up, and we'll figure out how to continue for the next one.
All right, sounds good.
Excellent.
All right, thanks
everyone.
Thanks for joining. We'll see you on episode 8.